All right, Shabbat Shalom, everybody, again. Trying to think of something to put together and wasn't having a lot of luck. And then I thought about, there's a lot of times people say that it's hard to see, Yahshua in the Old Testament. And so I did some looking and found a bunch of verses where there's kind of correlations between, both Joseph and Moshe, and the correlations between things that they did and Yahshua, so that they were both a foreshadowing of Yahshua. So there's going to be lots and lots of scripture verses. If you try to keep up, you're probably going to not keep up. So if you want them, I can print multiple copies and give them to you. But so it's basically just a big run through of different parallels, and then scripture verses to say, well, this is that they're how they tie together. So it's just a thing to say that that he is there. You just sometimes have to look for him. So first one of the parallels that we're starting off between Joseph and Yahshua, and the first is that he was beloved of his father. So if you go to Genesis 37, it says, "Now Israel loved Joseph more than all his children." And if you go back over to Matthew 3:17, it says, "See a voice from the heavens saying, 'This is my son, the beloved, in whom I did delight.'" And they were both envied and hated without a cause. If you get Genesis 37, "And when his brethren saw that their father loved him more, they hated him." And Mark 15:10, "The chief priests have delivered him for envy, and they hated him without a cause." They both foretold that one day they would rule. Remember, Joseph told his brothers, "Your sheaf stood and made obeisance to my sheaf." And in Matthew 26, you say, "You shall see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of power and coming in the clouds of heaven." They were both sent by their fathers to seek after the welfare of their brothers. In Genesis 37:14, "Go see whether it be well with thy brethren." And then in Luke 20, "I will send my beloved son." So once again, Yahweh was sending his son down to just check check on everything. They were both rejected and condemned to die. In Genesis 37, they conspired against him to slay him. And in Luke 19:14, we will not have this man to reign over us. But they cried, saying, "Crucify him, crucify him." So they didn't want to be ruled by Yahshua. They were both stripped of their clothing. Genesis 37:23, they stripped Joseph out of his coat that was on him. And in Matthew 27, they stripped him. They were both thrown into a pit. Genesis 37, and they took him and cast him into a pit. In Matthew 12:40, "So shall the Son of Man be cast 3 days and 3 nights in the heart of the earth." They were both sold for silver into the hand of Gentiles. Genesis 37, they sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites 20 pieces of silver, and they brought Joseph into Egypt. In Matthew 26:15, and they bargained with him, Judas, for 30 pieces of silver. They both became servants. And Joseph was brought down to Egypt, and he was in the house of his master, the Egyptian. In Luke 22:27, Yahshua says, "But I am in your midst as the one who serves." They both resisted temptation. Genesis 39, the story of his temptation by Potiphar's wife, and he resisted. In Hebrews 4:15 recounts, "He was in all points tempted like as we are, yet without sin." They were both falsely accused. Once again, Joseph in Genesis 39, "The Hebrew servant whom he has brought unto us came unto me to mock me." In Matthew 26:59, "And the chief priests and the elders and all the council were seeking false witnesses against Yahshua to put him to death." They were both numbered with transgressors, and Joseph's master put him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound. And Yahshua was hung between 2 prisoners. Luke 23:33, "And when they had come to the place called Golgotha, they impaled him there, and the evildoers, one on his right and the other on his left." But they both promised deliverance to a condemned man. "Yet within 3 days the Pharaoh lift up thine head and restore thee." That's, Joseph telling the guy in prison. And then Yahshua, when he was on the on the stake. And Yahshua said to him, truly, I say to you today, you shall be with me in paradise. They both foretold the future accurately. Genesis 41:12-13. And there was a Hebrew youth, the servant of the captain of the guard, and we related to him, and he interpreted our dreams for us. To each man he interpreted according to his own dream, and it came to be as he interpreted for us, so it came to be. In John 13:19. Now I tell you before it come, that when it is come to pass, you may believe that I am he. They both proved to be great counselors. Genesis 41:39. For as much as Elohim have shown thee all this, there is none discreet and wise as thou art. That was Pharaoh talking to Joseph. And in Isaiah 9:6, and his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor. That's talking about Yahshua. They were both promoted to honor and glory. And Pharaoh said to Joseph, see, I've set thee over all the land of Egypt. In Philippians 2:9, Elohim therefore has highly exalted him and given him the name which is above every name. All people were commanded to bow to them. In Genesis 41:43, and he let him ride in the second chariot which he had, and they cried out before him, bow the knee, and he set him over all the land of Mitzrayim. And once again, Philippians 2:10, and at the name of Yahshua, every knee shall bow. They provide for everyone in need. In Genesis 41, all the countries came to Joseph to buy grain. In John 6:35, Yahshua says, I am the bread of life. He that cometh to me shall never hunger. They are both not recognized by their own people. In Genesis 42, and Joseph knew his brethren, but they knew him not. And in Luke 24:15-16, and it came to be as they were talking and reasoning that Yahshua himself drew near and went with them, but their eyes were restrained so that they did not know him. They both saved all of Israel. In Genesis 47, they said, you have saved our lives. Let us find favor in the eyes of my master, and we shall become Pharaoh's servants. In Matthew 15, I was not sent except to the lost sheep of the house of Israel. The brothers go back and tell Israel in Genesis 45:26, and they told him, saying, Joseph is alive. And we're instructed to go out and tell everyone that Yahshua is alive. Both endured hardship to save their people. To save save Israel, Joseph suffered great hardship in Egypt as being a slave and then in prison. And we all know what Yahshua, I guess we can't know, but he did endure great hardship to save us. And now we'll go over to Moshe and show some correlations between the two of them. They were both born, Hebrews, and Moshe's come from the line of Abraham, and Yahshua is from the line of David. They were both born while Israel was suffering under a cruel ruler. Moshe was suffering; they were suffering under Pharaoh, and in Yeshua's times, they were suffering under Herod. They were both hidden in Egypt as a child. In Exodus 2:2, when the woman conceived and bore a son, and she saw that he was a lovely child, and she hid him 3 months. In Matthew 2:13, and when they had left, see, a messenger of Yahweh appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise, take the child and his mother, and flee to Mitzrayim, and remain there until I bring you word, for Herod is about to seek the child to destroy him. And rising up, he took the child and his mother, and by night, and departed from Mitzrayim. Their leaders tried to kill them both. In Exodus 1:22, Pharaoh commanded all his people, saying, throw every son who is born into the river, and keep alive every daughter. In Matthew 2:16, Herod, having seen that he was fooled by the Magi, was greatly enraged, and sent forth and slew all the male children in Bethlehem, and all the boarders from 2 years and older, according to the time which he had exactly learned from the Magi. They both transformed water. Exodus 7:20, and Moshe and Aaron did so as Yahweh commanded, and he lifted up the rod and struck the waters that were in the river, and the eyes of Pharaoh and the eyes of his servants, and all the waters that were in the river turned to blood. And in John 2, we recount the wedding story. And there were 6 stone water jugs standing there, according to the mode of the cleansing of the Yehudim, each holding 2 or 3 measures. Yahshua said to them, fill the water jugs with water. And they filled them to the brim. And he said to them, now draw out and take into the master of the feast. So they took it. But when the master of the feast had tasted the water that had become wine, he did not know where it came from. They both died on a hill. Is that yours? Is that Amber Alert, probably? There we go. Fort Lauderdale. A little far away from here. They both fasted for 40 days. Exodus 34:28. And he was there with Yahweh 40 days and 40 nights. He did not eat bread and did not drink water. And he wrote on the tablets the words of the covenant, the 10 words. Went over that today. And Matthew 4:2. Then Yahshua was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tried by the devil. And after having fasted 40 days and 40 nights, he was hungry. They were both hated by the ruling parties. Exodus 1:8, I'm sorry. Then a new sovereign arose over Mitzrayim who did not know Joseph, and he said to his people, "See, the people of children of Israel are more and stronger than we. Come, let us act wisely towards them, lest they increase. And it shall be when fighting befalls us, they shall join our enemies and fight against us and go up to the land." Mark 3:6. And the Pharisees went out and immediately plotted with the Herodians against him to destroy him. They both chose people to carry on after them. Then Yahweh said to Moshe, "Gather to me 70 men of the elders of Israel, whom you know to be the elders of the people, and officers over them, and bring them to the tent of meeting, and let them stand there with you." And Yahshua chose his disciples to carry on after him. They both led people to the promised land. Moshe led his people, to the Israelites, to the promised land, and Yahshua leads us to the promised land. Yeah. They both controlled the waters. In Exodus 14, and Moshe stretched out his hand over the sea, and Yahweh caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea into dry land, and the waters were divided. In Mark 4:39, and having been awakened, he rebuked the wind, and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. Their faces both shone with glory coming down from the mountain. Exodus 34:29. And it came to be, when Moshe came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of the witness were in Moshe's hand, when he came down from the mountain, that Moshe did not know the skin of his face shone, since he had spoken with him. In Matthew 17, and after 6 days, Yahshua took Kepha and Jacob and Yochanan, his brother, and brought them up on a high mountain by themselves. And it was transformed before them. His face shone like the sun, and his garments became white as the light. They both told us another would come. In Deuteronomy 18, Yahweh your Elohim shall raise up for you a prophet like me from your midst, from your brothers. Listen to him. And in John 14, Yahshua says, "And I shall ask the Father, and he shall give you another helper to stay with you forever, the Spirit of truth, whom the world is unable to receive, because it does not see him or know him. But you know him, for he stays with you and shall be with you." There's a long period of silence between their childhood and adulthood. We hear about Moshe being pulled out of the river, then we don't hear anything until he's a lot older. And similarly with Yahshua, we hear about the when he went off to the 3 days in the temple, then we don't hear anything till he's 30. They both showed compassion to a woman getting water at a well. Exodus 2:16, and the priest of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water, and they filled the trough to water their father's flock. But the shepherds came and drove them away. Then Moshe stood up and came to their rescue and watered their flock. In John 4:25, the woman said to him, "I know that Messiah is coming, the one who is called Anointed. When that one comes, he shall announce to us all." Yahshua said to her, I who am speaking to you am he. And that one made me think, and Chris and I were talking about it, that's the only scripture I can remember where Yahshua actually admits to anyone other than the chosen that he was actually the Messiah. Any other time when anybody asked him, he's just like, he never really answered him. So here was a stranger, and he was, kind enough to tell her, yeah, I am. They both offered their life for the salvation of the Israelites. In Exodus 32:30, and it came to be on the next day that Moshe said to the people, "You have sinned a great sin, and now I'm going up to Yahweh if I might atone for your sin." Hebrews 7:26-27. For it was fitting that we should have such a high priest, kind, innocent, undefiled, having been separated from sinners, and exalted above the heavens, who does not need, as those high priests, to offer up slaughtered offerings day by day, first for his own sin and then for those for the people. For this he did once for all when he offered up himself. They both washed others with water. Leviticus 8:6. So Moshe brought Aaron and his sons and washed them with water. In John 13:5, after that, he put water into a basin and began to wash the feet of the taught ones and to wipe them with the towel which he was girded. So those just to some of them. I just went through it and found, but it's just a lot of people say that that they can't find Yahshua anywhere in the Old Testament, but he's there all over the place if you just look. And I think a lot of the reasons is because that's how we're supposed to be able to tell, and that's how they were supposed to know who Yahshua was. Moshe said, "Hey, someone's going to come after me. Listen to him." So that's why a lot of the stuff I think is documented in there, so that we can see, they were both Joseph and Moshe were foreshadowings of Messiah to come. So just keep reading, keep looking. If you look hard, you'll find them all over the place. Yahweh bless. Get all this stuff out.